I spent 30 years raising a boy I thought was an orphaned relative, only to discover on my deathbed that he was my husband's illegitimate son with my best friend. Then I closed my heavy eyes and woke up 17 again. This time, I'm changing everything. The sterile scent of rubbing alcohol and fading lilies is something you never forget. It clings to the back of your throat, a constant reminder that you are running out of time. At 47, my body was a hollow shell, ravaged by late-stage ovarian cancer. But the physical agony was nothing compared to the crushing weight of the betrayal unfolding at the foot of my hospital bed. I was supposed to be asleep. The morphine drip was heavy, but a sudden spike of lucidity pulled me from the dark. Through the slits of my half-closed eyelids, I saw them. My husband, Liam Caldwell, my best friend, Harper Davies, and my son, Noah, or rather, the boy I had raised as my son. 30 years ago, shortly after Liam and I were married, Liam's distant cousin had supposedly died in a tragic accident, leaving behind an infant. Liam had begged me, with tears in his eyes, to take the boy in. "We can give him a better life, Chloe," he had pleaded. "You have such a big heart. He needs a mother." I gave up my youth for Noah. I rocked him through fevers, paid for his expensive private schools with my inheritance, fought for him and loved him with every fiber of my being. I thought we were a family, but as I lay dying, I heard Liam's hushed voice cut through the quiet hum of the heart monitor. "It won't be long now," Liam murmured, his hand resting comfortably on Harper's waist. Her lawyer confirmed the trust transfers to Noah upon her passing. "We did it, Harper. It took 30 years, but our boy gets everything." Harper leaned her head on Liam's shoulder, a sickeningly fond smile on her lips. "You played the devoted husband so well, Liam, and she never suspected a thing. Raising my son for me, paying for everything. I almost feel bad for her." I shifted my gaze to Noah, the boy I had made chicken soup for, the boy whose college tuition I had funded. He was 30 now, standing there in a bespoke suit I had bought him, checking his Rolex. "Can we wrap this up?" Noah sighed, annoyed. "I have a dinner reservation in an hour. She's out cold anyway. She did her job as the ATM, Dad. Let's just wait for the call." My heart shattered into a million jagged pieces, piercing my lungs, stopping my breath. It was a master class in deception. Liam hadn't married me for love. He had married the Hastings family fortune. Harper hadn't stayed my best friend out of loyalty. She wanted a front row seat to watch me play the unpaid, wealthy nanny to her bastard child. The monitor beside me began to wail, a long, continuous beep. Panic flashed across Liam's face, not for me, but for the optics of the moment. The darkness rushed in, cold and absolute. My final thought was a scream of pure, unadulterated hatred. If I had one more chance, I would burn their world to the ground. I gasped, shooting upward, my lungs filled with sweet, unmedicated air. The scent of lilies and bleach was gone, replaced by the comforting aroma of vanilla and fresh laundry. I was tangled in a floral duvet cover, dripping with sweat, my chest heaving as if I had just run a marathon. I scrambled out of bed, my knees weak, and stumbled toward the full-length mirror on the closet door. I stopped dead. Staring back at me was not the gaunt, pale, dying woman of 47. It was a girl with flushed cheeks, bright, unblemished skin, and thick, healthy hair. I was 17. My trembling hands reached out, touching the cold glass of the mirror. How? My eyes darted to the digital clock on my nightstand. August 14th. Next to it sat my old silver flip phone and an acceptance letter printed on heavy cardstock, Oak Ridge Preparatory Academy. The memories hit me like a freight train. August 14th, the beginning of my senior year of high school. Today was the day I was supposed to finalize my transfer to Oak Ridge Prep. In my past life, I had practically begged my parents to let me switch schools, just so I could be closer to Liam. He was the star quarterback there, the charismatic golden boy who had just started paying attention to me. Harper had been the one to encourage it, whispering in my ear that Liam was my soulmate. If I went to Oak Ridge today, the cycle would begin again. The trap would be set. "Chloe, breakfast," my mother's voice called from downstairs, vibrant and alive. My mother, who in my past life had died of a broken heart just a few years after Liam isolated me from my family. A choked sob escaped my lips, but I swallowed it down, replacing the sorrow with an ironclad resolve. The universe had given me a reset button. I wasn't just going to avoid Liam and Harper. I was going to dismantle their futures brick by brick, just as they had dismantled my life. I grabbed the Oak Ridge acceptance letter, marched over to the trash can, and ripped it into tiny, unreadable shreds. When I walked down the grand staircase of the Hastings estate, my parents were sitting in the sunlit dining room. My father, Richard, was reading the morning paper while my mother, Eleanor, poured coffee. Seeing them alive, looking so young and healthy, nearly broke my composure. "Good morning, sweetheart," my dad smiled. "Ready for the big meeting at Oak Ridge today? I still think it's a mistake leaving Crestview, but if you're sure." I pulled out a chair and sat down, looking my father dead in the eye. "I'm not going to Oak Ridge, Dad," I said, my voice eerily calm and steady. "I've thought about it all night. I want to transfer to Westbridge Academy instead." My father lowered his newspaper, his eyebrows shooting up. Westbridge was an elite, rigorous, no-nonsense academy on the other side of the city. It was famous for producing Ivy League scholars and ruthless CEOs. It was also the bitter rival of Oak Ridge. "Westbridge?" My mother chimed in, confused. "But Chloe, you've been talking about Oak Ridge for months. All your friends are going there. Harper is there. Liam is there." Just hearing their names made my stomach violently churn. "I've outgrown them," I said simply, taking a sip of orange juice. "Oak Ridge is a party school. If I want to get into a top university and actually take over the family business one day, I need to be at Westbridge. I want to focus on my future." My father's eyes lit up with a mixture of shock and immense pride. In my previous life, I had abandoned any ambition of running Hastings Enterprises to play the dutiful housewife to Liam. "I'll make the call right now," my dad said, already reaching for his phone. "The headmaster at Westbridge owes me a favor. You'll start on Monday." The first thread of destiny had just been snipped. Monday morning arrived with a crisp autumn breeze. I stood before the towering iron gates of Westbridge Academy, adjusting the collar of my navy blue blazer. The architecture here was intimidating Gothic stone, ivy-crawling walls, and an atmosphere that screamed old money and high expectations. It was perfect. Liam couldn't afford to step foot here, and Harper wouldn't dare. My transition into Westbridge was seamless, though it wasn't without its challenges. The curriculum was grueling, but with a 47-year-old mind trapped in a teenager's body, I absorbed the material with a terrifying efficiency. I didn't care about the high school drama, the cliques, or the cafeteria hierarchy. I was a ghost on a mission. By Wednesday, my old silver flip phone was vibrating nonstop. Liam 12, missed calls Harper, 8 missed calls. I hadn't answered a single one. Let them sweat. Liam's carefully constructed plan relied entirely on securing my affection and, more importantly, my father's checkbook before graduation. Without me fawning over him at Oak Ridge, he was losing his grip. Finally, on Friday afternoon, the inevitable happened. As I walked out of the Westbridge gates toward my waiting driver, a rusted 1998 Honda Civic screeched to a halt at the curb. Liam jumped out looking frantic. He was wearing his Oak Ridge Letterman jacket, flashing that trademark crooked smile that had once made my teenage heart flutter. Now, looking at his handsome face, all I saw was the monster who had counted down the minutes to my death. "Chloe," he called out, jogging toward me. "What is going on with you? I've been trying to reach you all week. Harper said you ghosted her, and then I find out you transferred to Westbridge." I stopped, signaling for my driver, Thomas, to wait. I looked Liam up and down, keeping my expression perfectly blank. "Liam," I said, my tone as cold as winter ice, "what are you doing here?" His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "I came to see my girl. Seriously, Chloe, why are you acting like this? We were supposed to rule Oak Ridge together this year. You just abandoned me, abandoned us." The manipulation was so blatant I almost laughed. My girl. We hadn't even kissed yet in this timeline. He was laying the groundwork, trying to fast-track the relationship because he knew Harper was already pregnant. Wait, Harper was already pregnant. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The timeline of Noah's birth in my past life had always been a little blurry. Liam claimed Noah was born the summer after we graduated. That meant conception happened in the fall of senior year. Right now, Liam was trying to lock down the wealthy Hastings heiress while actively hiding his best friend's pregnancy. I didn't abandon anyone, I replied smoothly, crossing my arms. I just realized I have bigger priorities than high school football games and cheap diner dates. I'm focusing on my academics. Liam stepped closer, trying to invade my personal space, attempting to use his physical presence to intimidate me. Come on, Chloe. Don't be a snob. You're breaking my heart here. I really like you. I thought we had something special. Before I could deliver a scathing reply, a dark, sleek Mercedes pulled up behind Liam's beat-up Honda. The back door opened, and a boy stepped out. He was tall, dressed in the immaculate Westbridge uniform, with piercing gray eyes and a sharp jawline. Declan Hayes. In my past life, Declan was the heir to the Hayes shipping empire, a notoriously ruthless businessman, and the one man Liam was absolutely terrified of. Liam had spent decades trying to compete with Declan's company and failing miserably. In high school, Declan was a myth, a notoriously private prodigy. Declan paused, glancing at Liam's rusted car blocking the driveway, and then looked at Liam with an expression of sheer disdain. "You're blocking the loading zone," Declan said, his voice a low, authoritative baritone that demanded immediate compliance. Liam bristled, puffing out his chest. "We're having a private conversation, man. Back off." Declan didn't even blink. He turned his gaze to me. "Are you experiencing an issue, Hastings?" I looked at Declan. We had shared a calculus class this week but hadn't spoken a word. Yet he knew my name. I looked back at Liam, whose face was turning a mottled shade of red, embarrassed by the stark contrast between his cheap bravado and Declan's effortless power. "No issue, Declan," I smiled, a genuine sharp smile, "just taking out the trash." Liam's jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" "You heard me, Liam." I stepped forward, dropping my voice so only he could hear. "Stop calling me. Stop coming to my school. We are nothing to each other, and we never will be. Go back to Oak Ridge. Go back to Harper. I know exactly what you two are up to behind closed doors, and I want no part of it." The color drained from Liam's face entirely. His eyes widened in absolute terror. He didn't know what I knew, but the mention of Harper struck the exact nerve I was aiming for. "Chloe, he stammered, taking a step back. "Goodbye, Liam," I said, turning my back on him. I nodded to Declan, who watched the exchange with a flicker of dark amusement in his gray eyes before slipping into the back seat of my car. As Thomas drove me away, I looked out the tinted window. Liam was standing frozen on the sidewalk, looking small and defeated, while Declan walked past him without a second glance. The adrenaline rushed through my veins. The first strike was landed, but simply pushing Liam away wasn't enough. If I left them alone, Liam would find some other poor, wealthy girl to parasite off of, and Harper would still play the innocent victim. No, I needed to expose them. I needed the world to see the rot beneath their golden boy and sweet girl facades. When I got home, I opened my laptop and created a fake, untraceable email address. I knew every secret Liam and Harper thought they had buried. I knew about the embezzled funds from the Oak Ridge Student Council Liam used to fix his car. I knew about the fake IDs Harper was manufacturing and selling out of her locker. But I was going to bide my time. I needed undeniable proof of Harper's pregnancy. 2 weeks later, the annual Autumn Gala was hosted by the Hastings family. It was a massive society event filled with the city's elite. My parents, still believing Harper was my dearest friend, had mailed an invitation to her house before I had changed schools. I didn't stop her from coming. In fact, I counted on it. The ballroom was glittering with crystal chandeliers. I stood on the balcony wearing a deep emerald gown watching the guests arrive. My eyes caught Harper immediately. She was wearing a tight red dress, clinging to Liam's arm as they walked through the double doors. trying desperately to look like they belonged. They looked like prey walking directly into a trap. The Hastings Autumn Gala was legendary among the East Coast elite. The ballroom of our sprawling estate was transformed into a glittering sea of diamonds, tailored tuxedos, and silk gowns. Waiters wove through the crowd carrying silver trays of caviar and vintage Dom Perignon. It was a room where fortunes were made and broken with a single handshake. I watched Liam and Harper from the grand staircase, a glass of sparkling cider in my hand. They stuck out like sore thumbs. Liam was wearing a rented tuxedo that was slightly too broad in the shoulders, and Harper's red dress was cheap polyester, trying too hard to mimic the couture surrounding her. They were huddled near the ice sculpture, whispering frantically. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. In my past life, this was the night Liam officially asked me to be his girlfriend, presenting me with a cheap silver promise ring while my parents watched with teary-eyed approval. Harper had clapped the loudest. Not tonight. Tonight, I was the director, and they were merely actors in a tragedy of their own making. I glided down the stairs, plastering a look of polite surprise on my face as I approached them. Harper spotted me first. Her eyes widened, and she immediately put on the mask of the wounded, devoted best friend. "Chloe!" Harper gasped, rushing forward and wrapping her arms around me. I had to force myself not to physically recoil from her touch. "I've missed you so much. You just disappeared to Westbridge without telling me. I've been so worried." "I've been busy, Harper," I said smoothly, stepping out of her embrace. "The curriculum is demanding, but I'm glad you could make it." Liam stepped up beside her, trying to look suave. "You look beautiful, Chloe. Seriously, breathtaking. But we need to talk, just the two of us." "There's nothing to talk about, Liam," I replied, my voice carrying just enough to turn the heads of a few nearby socialites. I gestured to a passing waiter. "Champagne, Harper?" I held out a crystal flute filled with bubbling amber liquid. Harper stared at it, her throat bobbing. "Oh, no thank you," she stammered, taking a step back. "I have a slight headache. I'll stick to water." "Are you sure?" I pressed, leaning in closer. I kept my voice low, dropping the temperature of my words to freezing. "It's a 1996 vintage. Or is there a medical reason you can't drink tonight, Harper?" Harper's face went paper white. Liam physically flinched. The panic in their eyes was the sweetest nectar I had ever tasted. I just don't want any," Harper squeaked, her hands trembling. "Suit yourself," I smiled, taking a sip of my cider. "Actually, Liam, you wanted to talk? Why don't we go somewhere private? The conservatory in the East Wing is empty. Harper, you can come too. It seems you two do everything together anyway." Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked through the heavy oak doors leading away from the ballroom. I knew they would follow. Liam was too desperate for my father's money to let me walk away, and Harper was too terrified of what I might know. The conservatory was a massive glass-domed room filled with exotic orchids, towering ferns, and a trickling stone fountain. It was also the room where my father held his most private and sensitive meetings. Because of this, it was wired into the estate's primary security and intercom system, a system I had quietly hijacked from the central control panel 20 minutes prior. I stood by the fountain, waiting as Liam and Harper hurried inside, shutting the heavy glass doors behind them. "Chloe, what is your problem?" Liam snapped, the charming facade finally cracking. "You've been acting like a psycho all night. You insulted me on Friday. You're insulting Harper now. I am trying to build a future for us." I reached into the pocket of my blazer, my fingers brushing against the small remote that controlled the estate's intercom. "A future?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You don't want a future with me, Liam. You want a trust fund. You want my father to secure you a summer internship at Morgan Stanley because you know your football scholarship to Oak Ridge is hanging by a thread. You're broke, you're desperate, and you're a liar." "I love you!" Liam shouted, taking a step toward me. "You love my bank account," I shot back, taking a calculated step backward. "Just like you love sleeping with my best friend. How far along are you, Harper? 8 weeks? 10? The silence that followed was deafening. The only sound was the trickling water of the fountain. Harper covered her mouth, a choked sob escaping her lips. "You're crazy," Liam stammered, his eyes darting toward the door as if looking for an escape route. "She's not. We didn't." "Don't lie to me!" I screamed, channeling 30 years of grief, betrayal, and unadulterated rage into my voice. "I saw the pharmacy receipt in your car on Friday, Liam. I know she's pregnant. I know it's yours. So tell me, what was the grand plan? Were you going to marry me, leech off my family's fortune, and secretly funnel my inheritance to raise your bastard child?" I pressed the button in my pocket. A tiny red light blinked on the wall panel. Every word spoken in this room was now being broadcasted at maximum volume through the PA system directly into the main ballroom, silencing the string quartet and the 400 wealthy guests outside. "Yes, fine!" Liam exploded, losing complete control. He threw his hands in the air, his face twisted in ugly, desperate fury. "She's pregnant, but it was a mistake. I need you, Chloe. I need your dad's connections. Harper is a nobody from the suburbs. I can't afford a kid. If you just shut up and play along, I can fix this. I'll pay her off. I'll send her away. Just don't ruin this for me." Harper let out a blood-curdling shriek. "You bastard! You promised me we'd use her money to build our family. You said Chloe was just a naive, stupid ATM. "Shut up, Harper!" Liam roared back at her. "If I don't get the Hastings money, we have nothing." I stood perfectly still, watching the two people who had ruined my previous life tear each other to shreds. Suddenly, the glass doors to the conservatory were violently thrown open. My father, Richard Hastings, stood in the doorway. Behind him was a sea of shocked, horrified faces from the ballroom. My mother was clutching her pearls, trembling. The color instantly drained from Liam's face as he realized what had just happened. The entire East Coast elite had heard every single word. "Thomas!" my father said, his voice a deadly, quiet rumble. Our massive head of security stepped forward from the shadows. "Escort Mr. Caldwell and Miss Davies off my property. If they ever come within 100 yards of my daughter again, I will personally ensure they do not live to regret it." Liam fell to his knees, openly weeping, begging my father for forgiveness. Harper was hysterical, screaming at Liam as security dragged them both by their arms out into the cold autumn night. I looked up and met the eyes of someone standing near the back of the crowd, Declan Hayes. He was leaning against the doorframe, his hands in his pockets, a slow, approving smirk spreading across his handsome face. He raised an imaginary glass to me in a silent toast. The trap had snapped shut, but I wasn't finished yet. The fallout was biblical. By Monday morning, Liam and Harper were the biggest scandals in the city. You cannot publicly humiliate the Hastings family and expect to survive the social or financial execution that follows. My father was a man of his word, and he unleashed his lawyers, a terrifying team from Skadden, Arps, Slate, Meager, and Flom, to completely dismantle the Caldwell family. My father pulled every string he had. The bank called in the mortgage on Liam's parents' house. Liam's football scholarship was immediately revoked under a sudden morality clause investigation. But I delivered the final, fatal blow myself. I anonymously forwarded my encrypted file containing the Oak Ridge Student Council embezzlement records to the school board, the local police, and the regional press. Liam was expelled and charged with felony theft. He barely avoided jail time because his parents drained their meager retirement savings to keep him out of a cell. Harper didn't fare much better. When her strict conservative parents found out she was pregnant with a disgraced, broke teenager's baby, they kicked her out. With nowhere to go, she ended up living in a cramped, moldy, one-bedroom apartment with Liam on the absolute edge of the city limits. They got exactly what they had originally planned for me. 30 years of misery, raising a child together. Only this time, they had no Hastings fortune to cushion the blow. They had to work grueling minimum wage jobs just to afford diapers. I, on the other hand, flourished. Without the dead weight of Liam Caldwell dragging me down, I graduated at the top of my class at Westbridge. I went on to study economics at Wharton, proving to my father that I was more than capable of taking over the family empire. It was during my sophomore year of college that Declan Hayes formally entered my life. Our paths crossed during a hostile corporate merger our families were co-sponsoring. The boy with the piercing gray eyes had grown into a ruthless, brilliant titan of industry. We were cut from the same cloth, ambitious, calculating, and fiercely loyal to those who earned it. We didn't have a fairy tale romance. It was a partnership of equals, forged in boardroom battles and late-night strategy sessions. When Declan finally proposed to me on a balcony overlooking the Manhattan skyline, he didn't offer me empty promises of destiny. He offered me a 50% stake in Hayes Shipping and a promise to conquer the world together. 10 years later, at the age of 27, I was the CEO of Hastings Hayes Enterprises. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was being escorted out of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center after a routine checkup. My driver was waiting with the umbrella, but I paused under the hospital awning, my eyes catching a man loading medical waste bags into a sanitation truck. He was hunched over, his face lined with premature wrinkles, his hair thinning. He looked exhausted, beaten down by life. His name tag read, Liam. He paused, wiping the rain and sweat from his forehead, and looked up. For a split second, our eyes locked. I saw the flash of recognition, followed instantly by a soul-crushing wave of regret and shame. He looked at my tailored Prada coat, the massive diamond on my left hand, and the fleet of security guards surrounding me. He looked at the life he could have had, the life he had tried to steal. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply looked right through him, as if he were nothing more than a ghost. I turned away and stepped into the warm leather interior of my waiting Maybach. Declan was sitting in the back seat, reviewing a tablet. He looked up, his gray eyes softening as he reached out and took my hand. "Everything okay with the doctor?" he asked, kissing my knuckles. "Everything is perfect," I replied, resting my other hand over my stomach, where our first child was safely growing. Not an illegitimate secret, not a burden, a true heir born out of victory. I looked out the tinted window as the car pulled away, leaving Liam to stand in the freezing rain with his garbage bags. I had been reborn to change my destiny, but in the end, I did more than just change it. I conquered it. If this story of ultimate betrayal, calculated revenge, and reclaiming your power kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. Have you ever had to cut a toxic person out of your life to protect your future? Let me know your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to share this video with someone who loves a dramatic comeback story, and make sure to subscribe for more intense, real-life drama narratives.